few weeks back, and we talked about pain points that centered around funding and credit and all kinds of other issues that businesses are facing, but Black business owners are facing a little bit more intensely. And so this is the beginning of a series of custom seminars that we are putting together. We actually are in the process of putting together our next one. Today's discussion is just to give some general thoughts on what's happening in the world of Black business owners. We've invited Ryan and Ashton Clark and KJ Hughes. We also had invited Monique Rose Sims, but she is facing a family emergency. So if you can just join me in just praying for Monique and her family, I'm not sure I understand. That would be awesome. I've already sent a prayer out to her family, and I'm going to ask you just to pray for her family as well. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with Ashton and Ryan Clark out of Chicago. We said local business owners, but this is I'm going to give you a history of these twins. At one point in time, about 9 or so years ago, I was a dean of the undergraduate program at the University of Illinois. And I remember these twins when they came in as high school students. And it was through a summer program for diversity students. And at that point, they were extremely busy on the phone, talking and doing business. And to a point when I just remember they know I'm going to tell the story that I have to say, if you don't put that phone down and focus on classwork, but they have been doing their businesses since they were 13. In high school, they additionally founded an online athletic sneaker company, a music streaming service for artists to promote their music. As I mentioned, they continued their education at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, on an entrepreneurial scholarship to study accounting and engineering. They founded the very first Black-owned online ticketing service for general admission tickets. They helped students at public and private colleges and universities sell tickets to their events. And after a few years, they decided to revamp an online ticketing platform and to see what that could look like. It all started with their knowledge of the event management space, and their research found that existing ticketing platforms are expensive. They distribute payouts 2 to 3 weeks after an event ended and sell the attendee data event organizers worked so hard to collect. As entrepreneurs, Ashton and Ryan launched Ticket Fountain, an online event management ticketing platform with instant payouts. Now, I'll let either of you start first, but I will share with you that the audience is consisting of owners of small and medium size, but also there are several students on this platform as well. So you have a wider range of a spectrum of where people are in the business. And so, Ashton, do you want to start, or Ryan? I'll let you guys decide what kind of wisdom. We'll give you each about 4 to 5 minutes. And I will say again to everyone that this is being recorded. As you hear Ashton and Ryan and eventually KJ speak, please feel free to put your comments in the section. We want to be an interactive session. So there are business owners in this community right now. We welcome your insight. If you want to speak, please say, I want to speak. And then we'll make sure that we allow you to speak, all right? So who's going to go first?
I say Ryan, Ashton, go first. Okay,
Ashton,
that's one way. All right, so sorry I'm a little bit late. I was on another call and had to get off as soon as I could to be here. So thank you for inviting us, Dean Mullins. One thing I'd say is that, COVID-19, I'll start there, is I think the ideal time. I know it's a lot of negative things happening in our world, especially as it relates to COVID-19, but I think this is the best time for entrepreneurs to thrive. because most of the time we're at home, we can't really go out like we used to. And so that's where great ideas can incubate. And so what my brother and I have had to do over, especially COVID, is figure out, we had a ticketing bit, or we still do, called Ticket Falcon, which was introduced. But this notion of live events, it was like hitting a brick wall. People couldn't host live events anymore because most of our events were greater than 50 people. And so because of that, we had to think to ourselves, how do we pivot? And one thing I want to make very clear is as entrepreneurs, especially successful entrepreneurs, we pivot. You know, there's no way around it. You think you have an idea today, that could change tomorrow, just like COVID. And so what we did was we said, you know, a lot of people are hosting these online and virtual events, but one, they can't remember the link to attend it. Two, they can't barely remember what time the event is or where it is. And so we actually started to augment our system to account for that. And so what we've started to see is a lot of organizations and entities using our platform to host their events, primarily because that first party data, and not to get too technical as it relates to data, but that's really what's most important to entrepreneurs. The first name, last name, email address, and all the relevant information about people you have had access to. And it's not like, and don't get me wrong, like putting a Facebook pixel, and I'm sure you've heard of that, like this code on your website to track visitors. That way, when you go back to Facebook or whatever platform, that you can serve them relevant advertising, which could be remarketing or retargeting. And we can get into that later. But my point in bringing that up is that that's relevant to Facebook. You can't pull that information out of Facebook and import it into Pinterest or other places. But what's super valuable is that first party data. And what we believe is that our event organizers who use our platform, that's their data. We shouldn't be selling it. And so as an entrepreneur, we've always thought about, it's nice to make money. Don't get me wrong, we're a for-profit entity, but we're not about ripping off people. We don't think that's a good business practice. And so right now we decided to make our platform free for free events. Why? Because we have a platform that we're already paying for. Why don't we just use it as an opportunity to help people, especially during this time? So I'll stop there, let Ryan take over, but that's really how we think about things. You know, profit is great, but don't get into a situation where your prices are so ridiculously high that you kind of get rid of key customers who could basically be with you for the long haul.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say is, can you guys hear me? Is there an echo?
You're good.
There's a little echo. Well, you're on mute now.
Okay, that's weird. I don't know where the echo's coming from.
That's okay, you're good.
One of the things that I would say is just the fact that we are coming into uncharted territory. And basically, a lot of us don't know how to handle certain things. And how my brother mentioned that we had to pivot, went from going from in-person events to a lot of digital events. One of the things that I would love to stress is that entrepreneurship is about execution. If you're not able to execute, you will not be able to have a successful, thriving business. So that's one of the things that I'd like to get into a little bit deeper later, but just know that there's a bunch of unknowns. We just have to tackle them. And it's easier to do it as a community. We don't have to do it alone. So.
Well, you know what? I want to stay there for a moment because I think that is a moment that I want you to elaborate a little bit on the notion of execution. So could you talk a little bit more on that?
Yeah, let's go from the basic point of having an idea or a concept, right? For a lot of students out there that, might want to start a business, you got to have an idea somewhere. One of the things that I was told when I was younger is that the best time to start a business was yesterday, which means the next best time to start a business is now, right? The longer that you wait and prolong, somebody else might take that idea, trademark it, do other things of that nature, and you might be out of luck. So if you're not able to execute on the ideas that you have in your mind, how could we expect you to actually execute on other things that might be necessary in your business? It always starts with an idea.
And I want to just add to that really quick, because you said one key word that I think is super critical for all entrepreneurs to really understand. He said the word trademark. I'll give you a perfect example about Ticket Falcon because I think it's super relevant. We were fortunate to be able to get that domain name. Ticket and Falcon are two very popular words. When you think about domains like .coms, and that's really the most popular, but you have .net, .biz, .us, and so forth. I mean, we didn't want any of those. I mean, we own them, but we really wanted the .com. And so we were able to find a way to get that domain name. But the issue is even beyond that. We needed to trademark Ticket Falcon so that no one across the US, even abroad, could use our name without us having permission, towards them. And so we went through that process. And what I will tell you is that it is a 7 month to maybe a year, if not longer, process where you have to clearly articulate when you first use the phrase or the mark, right? This case, Ticket Falcon. What is it about? And there's like 40 plus classes that you can actually get your item trademarked for. It could be a logo, it could be for t-shirts, it could be what have you. And so we had to go through that process. But I will tell you, one of the most interesting experiences for us is that there's a time where when the government, the U.S. Trade and Patent Office basically says they're going to put your trademark out there, right? It's like a period for people to be able to refute it. And it's for 30 days. And if somebody wants to refute it, a bigger company or someone that's using something similar, they can. And that was a nerve-wracking experience for us because we had a company that basically didn't want us to have it, and they were huge. But I'll tell you one thing, we made it through, and we got that certificate in the mail that said Ticket Falcon is a trademark of Ashton and Ryan Clark. And that means no one can use our name except for us. And I'm telling you, that is important. The sooner you do it, the better. Don't get lazy. Don't get worried about how expensive it is, because I could tell you there have been situations where somebody was using somebody's phrase or word. They had the trademark. And so they were able to go through the legal proceedings to, one, get money on behalf of that, right? It's not just saying cease and desist. It's more so injunctions can be brought across those individuals. So I wanted to make that clear, that don't forget about the trademark.
And one more question before I turn it over to KJ. Looking at you two Black men in entrepreneurship in this season, what are some of your pain points at this particular point?
Well, I'll start. So when you think about funding, right? So Ryan and myself, we happen to own all of our business. We don't have any investors and all of that. But what I will say, for those that want to go down the angel investor or private equity or even venture capital route, what tends to happen is that very few of any dollars are given to Black founders. And so knowing that I come from a private equity background, I used to work at a private equity firm, so I get how it works. There is not a lot of dollars going to Black and brown individuals. It's just the reality, and it's very messed up. What I will tell you is that with any problem like that, there is an opportunity. And I'm going to give a gem of knowledge, right? There's a thing called grants, which I'm sure you've heard of. National Black MBA, which I'm so blessed to sit on the board of, is having a business plan competition right now. It's national, right? And what it is the top prize is $50,000. It's a grant. And I tell you that because we won that in 2012. It was worth $10,000. We took that money, invested it in a house, and that's how we started our real estate business. But I'm telling you, now it's $50,000. Because of the lack of private equity that's going towards Black and brown founders, put that aside, and I'm telling you, if you have a business idea, whether it's in existence or something that you're just starting, apply, because that $50,000, you don't have to pay back, and it can change your life.
What I just shared with you, Jeanette, what did you just share with the community?
So the competition, the first link was the competition that Ashton just referenced, and the second link is to a host of resources for Black business owners.
Okay. All right.
Can I say something, Victor?
Yes.
I think I fixed my audio too. One of the things that I would like to just really make clear is that in these times, I've seen a lot of people, a lot of companies face desperation, right? They've been desperate, so therefore they've been acting on that desperation. One of the things that I would like to say is that, when Ashton talked about obtaining grants, I would want to make it very clear to obtain them legally. I've seen a bunch of people and even companies obtain like payment protection program grants and money or funds illegally. They're not doing it the right way. They may say, hey, I've got 10 employees, and if the SBA is saying, hey, you can get $1,000 per employee, you actually saying you have 10 when maybe you only have one. If they come back and audit you, you might not be able to get things like loans in the future. Your bank accounts might be closed down and things like that. So I would just really urge, do things legally. Don't act in desperation.
Thank you for that. All right, KJ, we're going to get you aboard and then we're going to open it up. Again, let me remind you that this should be more than a listening exercise, that as you hear or what you don't hear, please put it in the chat and we can address some of the things that you would like to obtain. KJ Hughes, class of 14 from the Smith School of Business, veteran of the sports and entertainment industry. He's also currently faculty director for the Robert A. Smith School of Business Sports and Entertainment Business Program. He's the founder and managing partner of Washington, D.C. based Relentless Management Group. His firm offers tax planning and budgeting and strategy and logistics and business management services exclusively for professional athletes. entertainers, and entrepreneurs. With over 15 years of industry experience, his colleagues have grown to include record and movie industry executives, marketers, studio heads, sports agents, celebrity publicists, and world-renowned brands. KJ, a Hillman Entrepreneur Scholarship recipient, earned his associate's degree with honors from Prince George's Community College and his bachelor's degree from here at Smith. KJ, I have to update your bio. It says KJ just got his executive MBA. He said, get it right. He's also co-founded, and I'm very proud of him for this, and remains very involved with a program called Sons of Life Incorporated. It's a nonprofit that provides leadership, resources, and mentoring to children of incarcerated parents. KJ, what would you like to share?
Thank you, I appreciate it. Wow. This is a Black business forum, so let's get, we got to get all the way into the weeds with this. My father's been incarcerated for my whole life, pretty much, since I was 18 months. I love some of the things that the twins were talking about in terms of resources, in terms of don't worry about how expensive it may be and those things, but let's get real. I mean, we, as Black business owners, to a certain degree, we're expected to bootstrap to a certain degree and, save up, and the resources that everybody else has are not afforded to us, So I grew a couple of companies, literally, like the twins, with my own money, with no investors. That's the hardest shit ever, ever. I literally, within the last 18 months, the first bank money that I've ever taken, I got in the past 18 months. That's 15 years of business. A part of it was me, right? I didn't go to banks because of, the insecurities of the systemic, that I'm well aware of, right? The systemic nature of banks, and, the overwhelming feeling you get when you fill out an application, and all of the unknowns that come with, some of the normal protocol in receiving funding. We just don't get that education. We don't have that. We didn't, either we don't have the resources around us in our community or what have you, right? So I'd like to talk more to the small and medium-sized businesses. One of the critiques that I've been giving to the University of Maryland, especially in the business program, is we talk about entrepreneurship and we talk about being a business owner, and we talk about that education from a business, like that core classic business education. We're always talking about the Googles and the Amazons and PwC and all these, lofty worldwide firms. I started out as a party promoter, right? I worked at Blockbuster for 2 years in high school. I was throwing parties in high school. I said I want to go to college near a big city. And the biggest city in the world for entertainment or sports or hospitality was New York City. Just because, I wanted to be around that, I went to Rutgers University. I didn't go to Rutgers University to get an education, though. I went to Rutgers University to be close to some money. And, I ended up dropping out of Rutgers, but I ended up accomplishing a goal, and I found some consistent money. Came back to DC, opened up a couple of nightclubs, and in that network, and this is what I'm going to, stress to this, panel, I'm sorry, this crowd is, what you don't know is a little bit your fault, and a little bit of kind of the environment that you're around, but you got to shift that, right? So I took a nightclub business, met a bunch of where, clearly entertainers and athletes come through, turn those contacts into a whole nother business that I've now been running for 15 years that allows me to travel the world and, teach. And, we have umpteen clients that are the most important people in their particular professions. We're just a cog in the wheel to help them become successful. But, I run a business that employs 100% Black people. All of my clients are Black. And so, I know the plight of, the Black business owner firsthand. And so one thing that I will implore you is, if you don't like the environment, you don't like what you see, you got to change the channel, right? So in terms of the funding, in terms of the banking relationships, what I've, said time and time again whenever I have the microphone is in order for Black people to be able to transcend some of the things and some of the barriers that have been put in front of us, we got to have more Black people on the other side making the decisions as well, right? So I think it's very important for us to enhance our network. What I did when I felt my network was, becoming kind of strangled, where I was tapping the same folk for favors all the time, or the same folk were tapping me, I said, how do I fix that? And for me, it was an MBA program, right? And, my MBA program, the University of Maryland's program is, we could have a whole 2 days worth of why it's so important. And again, that network, right? If you are a hairstylist, or if you're an electrician, or if you started a real estate firm, or if you are an insurance salesman, or it's like you're gonna become tired of the same network of people that you kind of do business with. And how do you create new is you got to go out and find new. And so some people go and pay, money for seminars and conventions and those things, but having a home base of people that you sit across from, in class, in the trenches with, those people will become lifelong, kind of lifelines, so to speak, right? I went to class, I was in class with the VP of banking for M&T, who guess for what, gave me a loan for a new business that I'm opening next year, right? I sat across from, a worldwide surgeon, Black, female, who, even to this day is like, showing me things. So I would implore you to, where you find a roadblock, where you find a hole, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Like we can't do it alone. A closed mouth don't get fed. If you're scared of hearing no, then you're not an entrepreneur. Like, we have to use the community that we create. And if you don't have it, then you got to go outside of the norm to go get it. Right. And that means either, I don't have a LinkedIn, but I do know the power of that. And I will try to create one, but reach out, cold call people, right? If you don't know something and you feel like you want to know it, pick up the phone. And more times than not, you will find, especially in the university community, you'll find people will give you the time to say, hey, tell me what the problem is. Let me try to connect you with someone. I might not have the answer specifically, but let me try to connect you with somebody. And you got to understand too, another, ask for introductions, absolutely. Another key point too, and this is for people like me, everybody, your emergency ain't my emergency, right? So just because you call me with something you want to know right today, and I don't necessarily get back to you, I don't respond with the same, intent or excitement about your idea, it's okay, right? But understand that these things take time, and you gotta shake a bunch of trees to get a little bit. You understand? So let's make sure, I guess the key points is, understand that the road for us is not paved in gold, right? We get it, we know it. And more importantly, there are resources out there like the Smith Executive Education Program that, really talk to this particular issue for in terms of access to resources, access to professionals who can help you. But again, don't be afraid to get no. Don't be afraid for somebody to, just ignore you and not, respond at all, right? Don't be afraid to run into that same person and you're like, hey, I hit you up. And they're like, oh yeah, I got it, but I'm gonna hit you back later. And then I've had people that I've reached out to a year ago, I run into them at another event, and then the conversation pops off and, they're able to help me in some type of way, and vice versa, right? I give people my cell phone all the time, and I got my read receipts on. Like sometimes I get it. I might not get back to you today or tomorrow, but I'll pull up the text next week. And maybe the question that you asked me, I didn't have the answer right then and there, but maybe I ran into somebody that kind of dawned on me, hey, somebody hit me up last week. I just met an accountant in that particular area who might be able to help them. Let me connect them right there, right? So I kind of want to open it up for some questions. I mean, it's easy for me to talk about my story, but my story is not necessarily everybody's story. So if there's some questions out there, I'd love to take some questions.
Okay, I told y'all this was going to be interactive. So this is your chance to ask questions.
Social media, how do you incorporate social media into your plans? Me specifically, because I deal with a higher end clientele, I don't particularly use social media. I do know companies that use social media. I think it's hard to sell what we're selling through social media because it's so personal. The one thing that I do use social media for, though, and this is important for, and Ashton, I think Ashton and Ryan will speak to this, is when you're an entrepreneur, I think your lifestyle is a part of how you brand yourself, right? And so people want to be in business or are inspired by lifestyles that they kind of see themselves in, right? And so I think there are people who do it really well, who use their social media to brand themselves. And therefore, then, once you want to know them and kind of how they were able to achieve, flying to this place or that place or whatever. Again, I'm not the expert here because all I post is like pictures of my daughter swimming at 3 and like occasional plane rides and occasional like private plane shit like that might intrigue you, like occasionally. But I'm still like a very like, I don't want you to know how much money I make, and I don't want you to really be in my business like that. I want you to be in my business like that, but I still want you to know that I'm young, I'm Black, I'm successful. And if I talk, you should listen because I've been through some shit. You know what I mean? And so, but again, I don't know how to do that very, very well because sometimes it can come across as like that bragging or, both, what have you. So I think that there are some successful entrepreneurs that do it well. Like if you sell real estate, there's nothing, like you should show pictures of your house or you should, right? Because it's, I think that all fits. But for me, my clients got all the money in the world. They don't want to see the little bit of shit I'm doing, So social media, I think, is important. The next question, I think, I'm gonna let the twins get in here too.
Well, I want
How were you
Ashton
able
and Ryan to answer this
talk on that?
question because KJ,
Okay.
you have sort of showed us the time in which you live in when it comes to social media. Where you live in, Clark Twins, when it comes to social media.
Yeah. So, I will say for us, so personally, we have social media. LinkedIn is a big platform for me, especially in terms of how we get leads for our business. Because you think about like event organizers as an example, we could talk to somebody today who throws events, but they may not be throwing a new event until next week. And so how do you continue to be front of mind with them? So one of that is use social media, which we do. You can throw ads up on there. You can follow certain people. You can message them and interact. So it's great. I definitely encourage it. But for me, I could tell you over the last couple of years, I took a step back from social media because I started to pay more attention to what other people were doing than what I was doing myself. And so what that allowed me to do, and what my brother can probably attest to as well, is I took a step aside because I didn't care what they were doing. And that's how Ticket Falcon was built. Because instead of me scrolling through my feed, seeing what folks were doing, I started building Ticket Falcon with my brother, and now it's available for all to use. But I will say from a business perspective, it's been great because we can, it's one way for people to interact with brands. If people follow us on Instagram, which our title on that or handle is Ticket Falcon, and you message us, you're going to get one of us. And it's the real deal, and it's been a beautiful thing. And so I know my brother has a lot more followers than me. Some people, qualify that by saying the more followers you have, the better off. I have my 2,000 and I'm happy. But my brother has a lot more. He can talk to that because he's a guru.
Yeah, just real quick, like even with younger generations, what I found is that they'll use apps like Instagram as like it was a text message, right? So like instead of us, sending emails, a lot of times we just get direct messages. And so oftentimes, if you're able to capitalize on that, you can actually turn that direct message into a sale. So there's been plenty of times where we've had event organizers that have messaged us on Instagram or Facebook, and we've been able to get them to become event organizers on our site without any emails or any phone calls, literally just direct messages. So never sleep on the power of social media because there's millions, if not billions of people that are using those types of technologies every day.
Remy, I remember you from a previous focus group, and then I see you actually right beside the Clark twins, and I remember you were saying that you wanted to learn from this younger generation. Do you do Instagram with your business, Remy?
Yes. Hello. Good to see you again. Yes, I do Instagram, I do LinkedIn, and I am getting to be a guru at these things thanks to my mentees out there. And it's not as hard as it seems to be. And like they all rightfully said, I've made some great connections, especially on LinkedIn. I mean, you can connect with whoever. You just have to stay consistent on what you're sharing because people are watching. I mean, I've sat at my desk and people out that I would have spent a whole lot of years looking for were looking for me because they were consistently following. Thank God I didn't run away from learning it. I'm not a guru at this, but I had to force myself. My daughter had to make me learn it because she was tired of coming to my rescue. And then eventually my mentees taught me, and it works all the time. And I encourage those who are older business people to get involved with that. It works and it pays.
Remy, just to let everybody know about your business.
Oh, yes, yes. So we have a nonprofit where we help to connect businesses and opportunities together locally and globally. And also we have a lot of mentees and students that we train to help them get jobs and to help them connect. And I was a former banker, so financing and packaging of financing is one area that I constantly use my skills. Like they all said, you've got to have relationship with your bank. It's not about what you know. What does your banker know about you? Like Mr. Hughes said it all. I mean, the rules are there, but you won't know all the rules until you get into a relationship. And respecting your banker is very critical because they will go the extra mile. So those are the kind of things I do and that I coach my clients to do. So
thank you so much, Remy. I'm so glad to see you today. Jeanette, we have questions, so let's go ahead and continue the questions.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a question. How were you able to scale your business without outside funding? I think this definitely goes to KJ, but perhaps, oh no, all of you.
Let me see if I'm on mute. Okay, good. So for me, I think scale came, as we increased the capacity of our company, in terms of our client base, right? And so there was always this chicken and egg, kind of race for us in terms of, okay, as we acquire more customers, how much, capacity scale wise, with staff, did we need to add before, you saw some of the services, or customer satisfaction decrease. And, to be honest, as we acquire more customers, we had the revenue to be able to, scale. And so I don't think I've ever wanted to scale to the point. A part of the uniqueness of our business and the differentiation that we wanted to go for was, and this again, it goes back to this Black business owner. There was a period of time when, of course, like any young person, right, you're shooting for the stars. Like I'm sure Ticket Falcon and, those guys are like, hey, we're going to be bigger than Eventbrite and we're going to be, the next blah, blah, blah. And I think that we come from a comparison society, right? And I think, I said this in another talk, but comparison is the thief of joy, right? What I had to do internally was, all of my competitors, literally all, are 60 plus, 70 plus CPA white men, right? The idea of business management came from a Hollywood model of actors and actresses. It didn't exist for athletes. And so the only thing I had to compare my business to was firms that had resources that I was never going to have. So I think that answers the question in terms of scale in terms of what, right? I think, we do well for our clients, we do well for our staff, and we're as big as we need to be at this particular time, but I'm not trying to be the richest man on the planet. You know what I mean? And I think that I don't think that I will be able to achieve that in this particular sector. There are some other, things that I want to get involved with where I think I have a better shot. But in this particular industry, you're only as big as your clients. and it's so hard to get them, and it costs so much to acquire a client, that the same scalability conversation that would apply to, say, a technology company doesn't necessarily apply to a service company. So I didn't necessarily need. I would have loved to have some banking partners. I wouldn't have missed my mortgage payments. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't have had oodles and noodles and like I did, but I didn't. You know what I mean? So it was personal sacrifice, along with smart scaling. You know what I mean? Not trying to be too big to compete with this phantom company, or be a phantom company and lose, our culture and our identity in the process. So to answer that question, I kind of, went a different route, and I kind of, didn't necessarily need to use those folks as my litmus test to, success. I think technology-wise, it's a whole nother question.
And I think you actually presented just another option. Reem, you talked about the notion of developing solid, sound relationships with bankers and funders. And, if Monique Rose Sims was here, owner of Milk and Honey, her whole story is based on the fact that she vowed that she did not need a full-scale marketing plan, that her best plan was word of mouth by the people who walked into her restaurant and basically said, "This is the best waffles and chicken I ever put in my mouth, then go tell somebody else." And so I guess at the end of the day, it depends on where you are, because it's not going to be a one set formula. And I think what I like about what you said, KJ, is the notion of starting at a place that you can manage, as opposed to feeling like you got to just do everything and you're not doing anything well. Jeanette, I want to keep the questions flowing.
Yeah, and it actually that really relates to the next question that we'll ask the Clark twins. Along with staying front of mind, how do you push through the $1 million advertising of some of the larger companies within your same industry? Do you even worry about it? How do you highlight your uniqueness in your industry?
You're on mute, Ryan.
Okay. Yeah, I think for us, there are companies out there that are in our space that have huge budgets. We clearly may not have the exact same budget that they have, but that's not, in my opinion, right now what's most important. It's all about who you're targeting and how you're targeting them. For us, if we could get 10 customers versus, 100,000 initially, I'd rather go get those 10 if we can afford to do so. Because kind of like Victor mentioned, if by word of mouth, if somebody is really happy with our services, they'll actually go talk about it to somebody else. What we found is that once people have an event, if they're active on social media, they'll actually post that the event was a success and they'll tag us in it. That's free marketing. So from that, we might be able to gain a customer as a result. So I don't necessarily think that we need to worry as much about our competitors as much. It's also about conversion. What can you do right now to convert your own customers or potential customers?
Yeah, one thing I'll quickly add is do not get shy if there is a bigger company out here that's in the same space. As you can clearly understand our market and industry, there are some bigger players. It doesn't matter. Event organizers are looking for a change, and that's where we come in. And so when you work at something hard enough and you pivot enough, at some point you're going to experience a little bit of success, and you keep tweaking it and tweaking it until you get it. But what ends up happening is that some people keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, even though it doesn't work. They don't switch up a little bit. And you have to be okay with that notion of pivoting. But at the end of the day, once you get, and we'll get into this later because we talked about success. One thing I want to mention that's super important is this notion of excellence, right? No matter how big you get, no matter how much money you have, this is why I appreciate this program and Dean Mullins reaching out to us, is because I would consider you to be excellent for this reason. I have many, many examples, but just as an example, right, your ability to reach back and say, hey, Clark Brothers, I want you to be involved with this, or sharing new opportunities. That's excellent, right? Bringing other people along the way with you, and that's just an example. So don't forget that. Being successful and significant, that people know you, is great, but always strive to be excellent. That is a powerful thing.
I have taught you well, young brother.
Oh, Ashley, don't listen. Ashley, don't size him. He ain't say I want you to be involved. He said you about to do this right here. So
yeah,
let me know. He didn't ask. He just said it. Go ahead, Doctor.
But I just want to take a moment because I think that what schools don't teach you is that notion of grit and grind. You guys have already sort of talked about pivoting and all those things, but it takes a certain competency to do it. I just want you guys to sort of just throw out some elements of what competencies do you think you just need to get through this unknown, complex, live one day, wildering the next day, live. What do you need to strive through this complex notion of business building?
For me, you got to have courage. You got to have courage because right now, like I mentioned before, there's a period of unknown times we're going through. It's uncharted territory, but you got to have courage to push through. We don't necessarily know what's going to happen tomorrow, but should that stop you from doing something excellent? It shouldn't. You just got to keep pressing forward and don't give up because many times we fall down, but it's basically not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get right back up. And we fall down almost every single day, but we're still getting back up.
We fall down, but we get up. Y'all know that? Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I had to say that.
And I'll add real quick too, I think it's having passion, right? Because I'll tell you, when you have a business you're not passionate about and something goes wrong, to what my brother was saying, you're going to quit, right? I mean, you know how many times when we were putting together this software for our ticketing platform, we're like, this is too complicated. How do we give instant payouts? But we saw the light at the end of the tunnel, right? We knew that there are event organizers out here that are self-funding their events and can't afford to have payouts 2 to 3 weeks after their event. That drove us to basically create a platform that is by us and essentially for us, right? And so I say have passion. If you're not passionate about it, you might want to think about, can you pivot in a way that's something, that's more passionate for what you're interested in, because that passion is going to drive you.
That's the second time we've heard for us, by us. KJ mentioned it during his intro, but KJ, go ahead.
I wanted to jump to one of the questions. The bank question, in terms of how do you find a good banker, I think the one, I don't have an answer to that, but what I will say is when you got to be very, very, very honest with your situation and very transparent about the banker cannot help you. Nobody can help you financially if you are not being 100% transparent about where you are, where you want to go, right? Because, and that again I believe is a cultural problem for me. Is like, again, I said it today, I'm like, I don't really want people all in my business, right? And so I think that is an insecurity that I have developed in the, in the society that we live in, because you're either being judged for not, or you're being judged for not, for having too much, or you're being judged. And so I think that is something that I'm still grappling with. But in terms of a banking relationship, my banking relationships grew when I was able to open up and say, this is what I have, this is where I want to be, and that person helping me connect the dots in the middle, and me being open and honest about if a goal that I was trying to attain did not happen, that kind of derailed our plan together. I think that is the key to the banking side. And again, culturally for me, it's not again, I don't know everybody that's on here, but I know my boy Doyan is on here. He understands. But we grew up, every money that we had, we would stuff, we would cuff, we would put in a shoebox. Nobody knew what we had when we had it. Not our parents, not our homeboys. Like, even to this day, if I had cash in my pocket and it's time to pay for something, we turn our back and count our money. you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a cultural thing. So I think that goes into, like I said, from a business standpoint, transparency with the banking relationship, your accountant is key, is super, super, super important. And then another question came out about Black isms. The quick to that is, be confident walking your truth. All of our clients are Black, so we don't necessarily have that. I have never signed a white quarterback or a white musician. That's just what it is. If that's my fate, that's my fate. You know what I mean? And so I don't know if we don't ever get that question. We don't have to answer that question. But if somebody was to ask me, I think that the question alone means that you're not necessarily the right customer for us. And that's cool. We just can't sign everybody. We can't, because one thing that I won't do, it costs me more money to try to be who you want me to be than it does to, you know what I mean? It's going to cost me more money to change the culture of my company than it is to just simply say, this is who we are, these are the things that we stand on, and we'll outwork anybody, but the rest is up to you. You can choose how you want to choose.
Jeanette, I do want you to read that question that Dwayne had. KJ touched on it, but read it. That's a good question.
This is a really good one. So the question is, being a minority and leading a Black-owned business with majority or all Black employees, how do you navigate the scrutiny of false equivalencies and whataboutisms that constantly attempt to degrade and minimize your success and achievements? For example, all Black is Black supremacy, this is reverse racism, or why doesn't diversity and inclusion matter here? It's a great question.
That is a very, very good question. And again, I think that, I used this analogy before. I think that, operating as a Black business owner, we're operating all the time in quote unquote white space, right? So how we see ourselves and how we are judged is based upon, a white equivalent, really, because you're not shown Black success on television. You're not shown, how Black business operates outside of, February. You know what I mean? And so I think that a lot of what people assume is Black business or how we should be run, we're being very intentional to try to make our business for everyone, and it costs us our identity at times. You know what I mean? As opposed to us honing in on, what we do best and who we do it for. And if, other people want to join into that and be our customer, then we're happy to have you. But we're not going to conform and, play a game and that wasn't meant for us to play. It wasn't meant for us to win from the beginning, right? The big old office. And I tried to play that game. And that's when, I missed 4 mortgage payments because I'm trying to play a game where I don't have daddy and granddaddy's money. I don't have angel investors. I can't get a $10,000 loan from my mama. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying to run a race that was never meant for me to win. But as soon as I said, I'm going to run my own race and I'm employ, people who I trust and who I know to be smart and have the ability, and how we show up is how we show up. I got, a Harvard MBA that works for me, young Black female. There are times when she comes to work with a scarf on her head. That is the culture. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the culture. Sometimes it's not, all the way wrapped up. It's like, she might use it in the front. But what I'm saying is there are some places where that's not, you're not allowed to do that. You know what I mean? And so it's just an understanding of being true to our culture. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that is important. It's hard to do. It may cost money. But if you can sleep at night putting on the mask every day, then so be it. But you know what I mean? I would implore you to be very, very true to who you are and the business that you want to run.
Can I ask Dwayne, if you don't mind, can you elaborate a little bit? I just want to make sure that we are hitting what you are saying, because there's a lot in this. If you're able to just talk a little bit about, where you are and why you asked this question, and if not, we'll keep it moving.
I can't unpack it all right now. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I was born and raised in Florida. My parents immigrated to this country. Just quick highlights from the West Indies, Jamaica and Montserrat. And they went through tumultuous times living in the South, dealing with racism. There was racism in the school I was brought up in. And, all I wanted to do was to leave and do something more powerful and help other people. I ended up joining the military, and lo and behold, I encountered some of the same things that I did at home in the military, and then even further becoming an officer, experiencing a lot of the racial prejudices, injustices, and biases that go on. And I hear these pockets of these discussions. And so now that I'm at this point in my career, going through the executive MBA, I definitely want to hear from those and other panelists that have walked that walk. Maybe their career path was different than mine, but how they navigated that, because you hear these things all the time, especially in the military and other walks of life that I've been in. I went to a service academy, so not very diverse. I was, one of 20 higher enlisted Marines, even fewer that were Black and not on a sports team or on a scholarship of some sort. So I definitely, definitely embrace diversity and inclusion. I'm just curious how you all navigate that and lead your businesses with all this negativity coming your way. I don't know if that answers Victor, but
Dwayne, you know how we navigate it? We leave that world and create our own. Like, I mean, we can't. I mean, I think Dean Mullins, you would probably need a one-on-one because he's the diversity and inclusion. That would probably take a one-on-one serious session. But I can't. I don't know because I've never worked in those environments. I think the equivalent to me is like, our clients, and there are rooms where I walk into where I know that I'm the only Black person in the room outside of my client who's the athlete, right? And so I understand those. I think that my peace and comfort comes by knowing that I don't have to go to work there every day. You know what I mean? And so I think that what you're talking about is the things that we're talking about underlying is that deep trauma that we experience as Black people that translate into our Black businesses that we need to unpack prior to, really being able to be successful. Because if not, you'll carry, and that's why we have those Black, executive who carry that trauma and, they pull a young, Black kid up and say, you should cut your hair, because that's how you're going to be able to make it to the top, or you should, we're going to go meet with so-and-so, make sure you use your good voice, or you understand, it's like we have this older generation who has been through that trauma and who has experienced the things that they needed to sacrifice and the mask that they needed to wear to be able to ascend in the white space, right? So I think that is a whole nother session in itself, though. You know what I mean?
But Dwayne, but there is a strategy to that, Dwayne. And please, KJ, my invitation remains there. Let's talk about it. But I think at the end of the day, if any of us as Black and brown people sort of reflect on our journey from where we started to where we are now, myself included, that it's you may have said it to a point of like joking, but it is sort of like you are creating your own world of opportunities that you're going to have to, as Ryan and Ashley said, continue to excel in this space that is sort of against you. And I remember a young mentee asked me not too long ago, well, how long are you going to have to sort of continue to work harder and stronger and smarter? And I said, until I die. And that's not a joke. It's the absolute truth, until I die. And I've accepted that, and I'm working smarter and strategically, and that's what we have now. I wish it for the youth to follow me to be better, and that's what we do. We're lifting as we're climbing. But for me, I just feel like I just need to keep moving and using my platform. And thankfully, even executive, this is a platform right here that we are giving you resources and power. So what are you going to do? You get off the Zoom call and share this with someone else. But, you're talking about 400 years plus of systems in place that are against you. And so don't give up. You still got to be excellent, but there is a strategy. And by the way, my father used to say, don't take this the wrong way, but, don't just hang around Black people when you go to college. And I said, what? And he said, I'm just telling you, you're going to just, get knowing people. And the bottom line is there is a lot of value to that person who didn't get like a 5th grade education telling me that. And so you're going to have to navigate strategically. Is there a formula? Well, there is an infrastructure in place. I'm happy to share that with you. Jeanette, what else?
Okay, so we have another question. How important was the planning process when you launched your businesses?
That was not for me. That's for the twins, because I didn't plan anything. I pivoted right on into this.
Yeah, for us, I mean, we had to plan it, right? We have a software. I mean, we're a technology company, and to build technology, you have to plan. You have to know, what do you want to build? How do you want to build it? Who is it for? How do you put security measures in place to protect people's data? How do you, data privacy issues, money? We're giving people money honestly in real time. How do you make sure they're getting the right amount of money that's owed to them from our platform? So we had to plan it. We had to write out, and that's what our background is. I mean, we are technologists that are also marketers. And so really understanding, how do you take this business idea and bring it to fruition in a sense that it's super complicated. I mean, what we do is super complicated. If it was easy, everybody would be doing this, right? But you have to take a plan. Now, I do believe that you have some folks that will put together a 100-page business plan. I mean, I see that being useful in some environments, but really it's like, if you can't put your business plan together on one page, it's just like, it's probably too complicated. And I can tell you, as working in private equity and venture capital, I used to read the business plans. For the ones that were super long, I put them in a completely different pile, no matter what the idea was, because I didn't feel like going through it. But there is this notion, I think it's called the business model canvas or something like that, where it's on one page, it's like a grid, 9 different boxes, and you fill it out. Once you do that, I think you can start with that and then build your business. But if you're spending weeks on end trying to build out something, it's like, well, I'm on the same model as, and I use the Groupon model because I think it's a perfect example. When Groupon was built, they built it in 2 weeks. And they said, if we can't get this right in 2 weeks, why even do it? And they did it in 2 weeks, and now you kind of see it's extrapolated with Living Social and all that. That's kind of the same model that we've applied. 2 weeks, if we can't get a minimum viable product to some degree in that time, why do it? Or we need to pivot and do something a little different.
Now you have
And it's not just about, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and it's not just about a business plan. You could write your plan on paper all day long, but it's also about the plan around your team, right? So for example, Ashton's more business and functional focused. I'm more technically focused. How dare you run a business on a technology and not have somebody in your team that's competent in that technology? That is the worst thing you can do in your business, is start something but not have the experience, or somebody in your team that can help you understand what needs to happen, that can compensate for that lack of experience. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, that's the beauty of interdisciplinary at its best. And that's what, truly good universities do. They put the engineers and the computer science and the business people, but also they put the social science people, the English writers on a team, and you are bringing out the best people. And so my thought to that question is, you need to get the best people and actually humble yourself and realize that that person on your team may offer something so much better than you do, but that person is adding value to your company at the same time.
Dr. Snyder, somebody asked that question. If you want to, yeah, I think you should read that one.
Thank you. That's exactly right. So hiring employees is generally easier when you've been doing the task yourself, outsourcing. But if you're recruiting for a position you don't have experience in, how would you go about building the team that you all were referencing? So how do you pick the people? How do you identify what you need and who to fill those roles?
Yeah, I think for us, we're looking, for quality over quantity. And, in a perfect world, we wouldn't see race, right? We would just see a person as a person. For us, we're just looking for the right person for the job at the time and when we need it. Do we, of course, have a preference for Black and brown skinned folks? Absolutely. Absolutely. Like my brother said, excellence is about bringing somebody else along the way. So we would love to continue that and have that continue on. But also we know that in order to exist in the space that we're in, we have to be diverse outside of just Black and brown folks. We have to, or else we're just going to limit and stymie ourselves in a way where we can't really grow to the full potential that we could possibly obtain. So we also have to keep that in mind. And that's tough, right? When you have a Black focused business, how do you really handle that? But we have to start thinking about that, because if we lock ourselves down as being 100% Black, then how are we going to expect to have anybody outside of somebody being Black giving us business or patronizing our services and things like that? So,
Jeanette, what else?
So what advice, this kind of lends itself to a previous question, but perhaps other ideas, what advice do you have for current students or graduates looking to start a business?
Sorry about that. My biggest advice is lean in. Lean in to your classmates, lean in to your professors, because, the university kind of ecosystem is likened to, a small city or a small state, right? You have everything. I mean, you have your human resources department. In the university, you have, you know, HUD, which is your housing department. You have financial aid, which is like the IRS. You have, I mean, you have this little world in the university. So the one thing that I, you know, kind of preach to the students that I've been in front of is make sure that you're doing more than just going to class. You know, you're there, you have a priority, of course, but make sure that you are, you know, socially and emotionally and physically engaged throughout this world, because the people that you meet in college generally are going to be the people that help you launch this business, right? You have like-minded individuals. You have the opportunity to dialogue and, you know, have discourse in these classes through your professors. And so what I would say is, you know, if you have a business that you want to start, talk and ask. You have the population right there to run surveys and, you know, get feedback from professors and, you know, structure it the right way. These professors love when you say, hey, can I have 20 minutes of your time? I'm working on something and I need your help. Like, the university is for the fostering of ideas. Like, that is what the mission is. So, you know, like, you can't go those 3-4 years without tapping into that, you know, those resources. So that's my advice from a university standpoint.
And I'd say start today. You know, a lot of us, and myself included, it's like, oh, I could do this, you know, next week, or, you know, when I get out of school. Wrong answer. I know when we were in school, we were blessed at the time, and I mean, I'm sure this is happening today. There were scholarships, and we realized people weren't applying to scholarships. So when we were there, we actually had the ability to really get paid to go to school. And what did that allow us to do? Invest that money into starting a company. And the whole idea is that you do that, you give dividends, and, you know, give back to the places that gave you the money. But bottom line is that we didn't wait until we graduated from college, because now you're waiting. If you wait, you know, someone else is going to get in and do it for you, and then you're going to be behind. And so, and it's difficult too, because I get it. I remember when I was in business school, I was traveling with my day job, had to go to business school during the evening, and was still running a business. But now I'm even busier than I was then because COVID-19. I'm on calls from 8 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 10 o'clock at night. But I wouldn't have it any other way, because I view it as this. When I'm busy and doing things that I love, I'm fulfilling my purpose. If I didn't have the company that I was running outside of all the things I'm doing right now, I would be bored. Even though it was tough, because there's been a lot of 3 a.m. nights, 4 a.m. nights, because we're dealing with people in different countries as well. But at the end of the day, I love it. So when you love what you do, you find a way to make it happen, and don't wait. If you don't know what to do, as was mentioned, talk to your professors. Talk to your classmates. I can tell you in business school, I met a lot of individuals that were CEO of this company or started this business, regardless of what they look like. Because I'll tell you this, you can learn from everybody. When we started our shoe company, most people don't realize this, and we didn't realize either. And I'll tell you a quick story. We decided, I mean, our shoe company, our website was like orange. That was like our color scheme. It was our shoe company. And we decided that we're pro-black. We're going to put a black man on our website. We were so happy unreeling this new website. Let me tell you, as soon as we put that black man on there, we were getting, you know, selling 100 pairs of shoes, you know, every couple of days. That next day we sold 2 pair of shoes. And you know what that means? Is that our primary customer were white women. And it struck us bad. It was hard for us to digest that, because we're like, wow, they didn't like the little figure that we put on the website. So clearly we changed it, because our revenue was coming from that. But what we've kind of morphed to now, if you look at Ticket Falcon, we're unapologetically black. Me and my brother are on our website. We tell our story, and that's just who we are. And I think today, especially what's going on with all the brutality that's been going on in our country, because we have 2 crises. I know we talked about, you know, the COVID-19, but we have this rampant racism that is also a crisis. And let me tell you this, and I mentioned this before in another meeting, people's pocketbooks are open. While they're open and willing to listen, that is your opportunity to go in and have those conversations, and do that unapologetically, because I don't know when another time like this is going to come around. And I'll leave it like that.
You know, I think that the 3 of you, in the confine of these last 3 or 4 minutes, talked about a mindset. You've got to be a go-getter.
Yep.
And I'm going to ask, and so you talked to, you know, you were talking to college students who are, you know, go and talk to your professor, but there's so many others who are grown far past college. the mindset is still the same. You still got to find a network in which you're going to have to keep thriving, keep living, keep developing. And, you know, I just paused for this commercial break to say that these webinars that are being put on by the Executive MBA program, the executive programs that focus on the business core, that's the beginning of your network right there, and the beginning of learning again. You know, even if you're thinking, you know what, some of this might be a little bit too theoretical based, you still should go through those seminars and develop just a newfound set of knowledge. But I just wanted to just pause and say that. Jeanette? Oh, Mark Forrest said, focusing on the end goal and not being swayed by the obstacles that come along. That is that mindset, that passion, that thriving, that in spite of this, you're not getting punched in the face, but you know, I gotta keep moving on, right? It's not easy, Mark. I know, but you definitely gotta keep moving. You know, I look at KJ, and I look at the twins. They've always asked for what they wanted. You know, you're talking about I'm going to apply for everything. I want to go there. I want to go there too. And eventually they have aligned themselves, this is back to you, Dwayne, with a bunch of people around them that supports them, that helps to develop them. And I would suspect that they are doing the opposite. You're getting rid of people who are keeping you down. Because that's just, you know, especially in this, you don't have time to be putting people around your corner that's actually regressing you instead of developing you. Jeanette?
Yes, so this one is actually directed to KJ. So KJ, you recently said that you had plans on starting a new business in a new year. How are you approaching the planning, marketing, and financial process with COVID-19 and no clear timetable of the pandemic being solved, clearly?
Wow. So the business that I'm going to use this opportunity to market. And this, if I told you the entire story, probably, you know, this would probably send you into a little crying frenzy, because the way that the world shifts, like Victor, Dr. D. Mullen said, is
you can call me three names in 2 seconds.
Sorry, we don't, because I'm looking at your nameplate and it say all of that in there. So the way that the world shifts for the things that you want and for the things that are for you, like I say this mantra all the time, what's for you is always for you. It's going to come to you. It's going to get to you at some point. I enrolled in an MBA. Through that process, I've been wanting to start a different brick and mortar business, because I believe that the business that we run right now would do very well with brick and mortar, because it gives me more visibility as an entrepreneur. It's a lot of times I got to explain what I do and who I am. Whereas sometimes when you have a brick and mortar business, it's kind of like, you know, hey, he runs so-and-so, or he owns so-and-so. So I love the idea of barbershops. I like service. So I approached this gentleman in Adams Morgan to rent a space to open up a barbershop. That idea expanded to adding barbershop plus retail. That expanded to add barbershop, retail, and coffee. Then that expanded to, you know, bringing in my roots, which is, you know, alcohol and beverage, and food and beverage. And I'm like, well, what if a barbershop had a speakeasy? And so I you know, told this gentleman who owned this building in Adams Morgan my hopes and dreams. And he's like, yeah, I like all of that, but I don't think this neighborhood's ready for a bar. It's, you know, it's too residential, blah, blah, blah. So I needed the lease to 2 different floors for him to let this happen. He denied me the lease for the 1 floor, which then in turn lost, you know, this conversation that I was having with one of the top architects in the world that designed Kith. I don't know if you guys know the retail store Kith. I had to compete for that. They said that we don't want to do it unless you do the speakeasy. He told me he didn't want to do the speakeasy. I went and knocked on his door at 11 o'clock at night, and he offered to sell me the building. I went to my classmate, who's the vice president of M&T Banking, right? And told him the situation, was super transparent, gave him my tax returns at lunch one day. And he looked at him and he said, you know, let's talk about this. Let's figure this thing out. He figured it out. I closed on the building. I bought the building. I'm building the business. And COVID was the best thing to happen because it allows us to plan for it without being open. In terms of marketing, in terms of COVID, in terms of, barbershops being kind of the hardest hit, we're given the space to really drill down and think about all those implications. I would have hated, our original timeline was to be open September, October. And we kept, and I'm like, we're not ready. Let's push it. Let's push it. Let's push it. And so we're like, let's get through the election. Let's get through 2020. Let's hope to have some sort of a vaccine or what have you. So the goal is to open in February. I'm on a prime strip in Alice Morgan in DC. Everybody knows, that area. I've had conversations with some very, very important people, celebrities who are like, that's the way retail is going, experiential retail. In the meantime of all of that, you see Brooks Brothers closing and J. Crew closing, and retail is changing. And I had this idea 7 years ago, and so it gives me chills because I think that the things that are meant for us and the intentions that we bring about in our relationships, in our conversations, in our activities, those things will manifest. You got to believe it. You got to believe it strongly, like they will manifest. And so the name of our building and the name of our space is called Manifest.
That's a good story, man.
And I'm gonna say, get the trademark. That's my little drop in the bucket right there. If you haven't already.
I mean, it's working. I don't know if we're gonna be able to get Manifest trademark just because
It's gonna be hard to get Manifest as a trademark.
It's out there, but we're trying. We'll see. Hopefully, nobody on this, none of y'all 43 people will be stealing my stuff.
Right.
See, I know, I'm joking.
Yeah, we already Googling Manifest so we can sell it to you.
Right,
But,
exactly.
That's why you don't tell your business, but you around good company. We trust in this company right here. Well, you know what? We're out of questions. Kelly said, "Nice, KJ." So do you guys want any last seconds of a piece of advice, or before we let this community go? And then I don't know if it's Judy or Michelle who has a preliminary insight on our next seminar for Black business owners. If not, we'll send it to you. But we actually have one that's planned for for August. But we'll get that information to you. So, what insight do you guys have as we move on?
Yeah, I'll say that it's okay to take an unconventional path in life. When it comes to our education, especially mine, I know for a fact I went to business school, engineering school for undergraduate, but I'm doing neither of that now, really, right? Like I got to focus in accounting. I'm not an accountant. I'm not even directly an engineer. So it's okay to pivot and actually take what you've learned in school and apply those same principles just in another area, because that's what I found to be most important. And I wouldn't look back. I have no plans to be an accountant at all. I love what I'm doing now, but I still am using some of those core principles I learned in undergraduate school to make myself successful now.
Ashton?
Yeah, I was going to say that I like the story that KJ shared because that kind of goes in alignment with our other business. We have a company called Equity Twins, and that's our real estate business. So in 2012, my mother encouraged us to buy real estate, right? And so what KJ did is he had a relationship with a banker. And I do think those relationships are very important too. And there are Black-owned banks as well. Church have credit unions too. So there are multiple places that we can go for money. But had that relationship, was able to get not only just the building, but I'm sure the land. I mean, it's the whole package deal, right? And so for us, what we've done is we've done something similar, but more on the residential side. Because I will tell you that when you think about people that are financially savvy, well off, that have a high net worth, most times it's because they have some type of investment in real estate. And I will tell you, if you have an opportunity to invest, and I'll tell you, Chicago, and this is why you have to understand where you live and what's around you. I'll give you a quick example. Chicago had a program called the Large Lots Program. Okay, this program meant that you could buy a lot for $1 plus $67 in closing costs for a lot that was owned by the city if you were approved within a block or two radius from where you live. Me and my brother were all over that because these lots, especially where we live, is where the Obama Library is going. If you think about that, the neighborhood is changing. More people are coming into it. The value of the property is increasing. And so you think about those opportunities, most people just don't apply, or they apply and they don't fill it out correctly. All I'm telling you, don't take advantage of those. Take advantage of those opportunities, but don't sleep on them, because that could be a way for you to foundationally pay for your company. If you think about it, like if you bought a piece of land for, a parcel of land for $70, and now it's worth $200,000, you don't need a private equity investor. So don't sleep on that opportunity. Just be aware of all the things that are in front of you, because if you sleep on it, you're going to miss out on somebody else to take it.
Judy, were you about to say something?
I was just going to say at the end, I was going to wrap it up about our next webinar, but if other folks have closing comments, let's hear from them.
We actually have a question from Adwin to the Clark twins. Jeanette, what was that question?
Yes, they just asked, or Adwin asked, what is the best website platform to use when starting a business, especially one that has to do with fashion?
Well, I have a follow-up question. Are you planning to sell something on the website, or is it just going to be related to information?
It's sort of geared towards both in terms of selling sort of up-and-coming brands with their products, and also sort of promoting their mission and who they are as a brand as well.
Got you. Primarily what we use, I'm a big WordPress fan, just because I believe in content management systems, but also just in our recent experience, Shopify is an amazing platform. Just with the amount of marketing and tools and plugins that come along with it. So regularly, those are between the two systems that we use whenever we build a website. It's either going to be WordPress-based or a Shopify-based website platform.
And one thing to add, WordPress, so you talk about like self-managed and then managed, right? Shopify, for the most part, is a managed platform, right? They pay for the hosting costs. You give them $30 a month for a subscription. They manage all that. There is some customization that's built in, but in the high level viewpoint is that it's mostly self-managed. When it comes to WordPress, there are two options. One is that they can host it for you, so it's somewhat managed, but you have very little ability to configure and custom the system or customize the system. And then you have a managed or a self-service or self-managed service where basically you have to take their code, this open source platform, and then put it on your own web server, and then you can customize it by using plugins and themes. So what I tell you is that if you're going to go that route, you have to really know what you're doing, because there are a lot of security vulnerabilities. And I tell you that because I've seen so many websites where people thought they knew what they were doing and they didn't, and they got hacked. So just always keep that in mind, so that you're always keeping the integrity of your data and protecting your consumers.
I just want to pause, do a commercial break. That I'm sitting here listening to you guys give Adwin, who reminds me of y'all back in the day of Illinois, and I'm just having a moment that you are now giving Adwin insight, where I just remember it was just yesterday that you was 13 years old. But let me just enjoy that moment for just a second. All right, so what else?
Well, I echo their sentiments on Shopify. We're going to use Shopify for our new concept as well throughout. So I've done tons and tons of research. It's amazing. I mean, you got plugins that do different things specifically. Definitely Shopify for sure.
Jeanette, you good?
All done.
I certainly do want to thank each and every one of you for participating, but particularly the twins and KJ. KJ, I don't bully, but I'm so glad that
You're my guy. You're my guy.
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys take the moment to do this. I want to just turn it over to Judy before we let everybody go to talk about our next custom seminar for Black business owners.
Great. Thank you so much, Victor, for pulling these incredible group of folks together. And thanks everyone for attending. On September 15th, we're going to have Andy Shalal, who is the founder of Busboys and Poets, join us. And Victor and he are going to have a conversation about how he has pivoted specifically during this time of the pandemic, and also some of the challenges he's faced, and a lot of the really interesting solutions he's come up with. So I hope you'll join us for that. Meanwhile, we are in the midst of a series of webinars about strategy. So all you entrepreneurs out there, please check out the website that Jeanette has published, and it was the same place where you registered for this, and join us next week for the second of our strategy webinars. We've got a series coming up on accounting, and I know there were some questions about digital marketing. Starting on September 30th, there's a series of 3 webinars about digital marketing. So please join us. Thank you so much for coming today. And I want to echo Victor's thanks to Ryan, Ashton, and KJ. It's really great to hear from you guys.
Take care, you guys.